I went into so many businesses that just simply had income as a single line and then had 300 expense lines. And I'm like, well, how do you know which service or which area is doing better than the other? And they didn't know. They had no idea.
You're listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with your host, Michael Palmer. Listen each week as inspiring guests share their secrets of success to help you increase your confidence, work smarter, and build a business you love. This episode of The Successful Bookkeeper is brought to you by PureBookkeeping.com, the proven system to grow your bookkeeping business.
Welcome back to the Successful Bookkeeper podcast. I am your host, Michael Palmer, and today's show is going to be a fantastic one. Our guest is an Australian who hosts the accounting technology podcast called Cloud Stories, curates an accounting apps newsletter, and is the author of Xero For Dummies. Heather Smith, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Michael, for having me on the show. Really looking forward to this, and hello to all the listeners out there.
Yes, wonderful to have you. And really, I'd love to, what an interesting bio you have. I'd love to know your career journey leading up to this point.
Excellent. Yes, I'd love to share that with you. So I sit at the intersection of bookkeeping, accounting, and content creation. And I'm educating the community about accounting apps, which is something that I'm really passionate about. I love bookkeeping, accounting, and I chose to study it because it's an international language and really enabled me to travel. So I've lived and I've worked in England, in Singapore, in Canada, and now I'm based here in Brisbane, Australia. I always say that my practice fits in my handbag. I've gone completely virtual, and I work with clients across the world. And when it was permitted, I traveled extensively. So I've run a virtual micro business since about early 2000s. I'm obsessed with how effective automation and integration can produce timely, clean data. And I work with clients in various different areas, but I'm sort of very focused on the education piece now and the content creation piece.
Very cool. So how did you get involved in all of this technology around the accounting industry?
I think I'm an early adopter of technology when it comes to everything. So it was as soon as they started coming on the market, I was always the first tester. I think I'm one of like the first 5 people to test Receipt Bank, which is a well-known solution out there. I was always the first person testing things, running them, taking them apart, unpacking them, working out how I could use them to adopt and implement them in my business. And I am very much of the opinion that anything that can make my life, that can bring efficiency into my life, I will adopt. So even if I identify I've got a process that takes 5 seconds, if I can find a tool that will come in and help me, I will adopt it and implement it. And then, of course, you've got those tools that you bring in and they sort of save you hours. And it can be across a whole spectrum of things. It can be from using Google to turn your lights on in your office, through to automating processes within the business, to anything out there, including I've even got a friends app called Fabric, which reminds me to reconnect with my friends on a regular basis.
That's awesome. So with regard to your own business, I'd love to know a little bit of that business journey. I mean, you started your business, you've used technology inside your business. What was your business journey like?
Okay, so I started back probably about early 2000s. And when I started, I was working school hours. So I kind of had 5 hours to work. And what I did was I sent out a calendar with blocks of time available on it to people that I knew. And I said, these are the things I can do for you. these are the blocks of time I have available. This was back before we had a lot of technology, fancy technology out there. Do you need me? Are there any times in that block of time that I can come in and help you? And so I would send that out to my connections, and they would contact me and they would book me in from that. And from a very early stage, that worked for me. And surprisingly, I had 5 hours available, and they would block me off. I'm very much a person who I don't do regular bookkeeping. I primarily would focus on setups and fix-ups and empowerment and training and training. So I would jump into a business, I would help them out, be that the training, be that setting them up, be that teaching them how to use their software. And then I would jump out and I would sit in the background. So I kind of refer to myself as the Mary Poppins, in that when you need me, I'm there. And when you don't need me, I'm not there, but I'm available to you. So some of my clients I've had for decades, but I might not only see them every couple of years. But when I do see them, I know what's going on in their business. I know what systems they're using, and I can jump in, fix up the particular area, and then jump out again. So very much before we had the sort of buzzwords of gig economy, I, through my own sort of necessity, was running my own gig economy there, and I was jumping in and out. And so I actually ended up with lots and lots and lots of clients because of that. But they were all small fish, lots of clients that I was kind of juggling around. And interestingly, this was before a lot of people were talking about SEO and websites, etc. Just interestingly, I just was able to keep it running and going like that. And one of the things was I had 5 hours available to me between dropping the children off and picking them up. So I very quickly realized that if I was going on site to visit clients, I was probably going to lose 2 hours of that 5 billing hours. So I had remote terminal services explained to me, and I set that up, and I sort of sat there with instructions on how to do it, set that up, and then I created a little training video for my clients, and I said, I'm not going to come to your office. This is what we're going to do. So way before we had online accounting software, I was doing it completely remotely, and that gave me an extra 2 hours billing time. So it was a massive increase in income potential just by doing it that way. So I was always virtual first in terms of the way I wanted to operate, so that I could operate around my children, which is now sort of a reasonably well-known method of operating.
Yeah, well, back then it would have been brand new, and so you were trailblazing away there. And did you get pushback from clients?
If they didn't want to work that way, we just didn't work, which was completely fine. So I'm never the type of person who's going to convince someone to do something they don't want to do. I'm like, this is the way I operate. This is how I'm going to do it. And if you don't want to do it that way, then you need to find someone else. And if people did want me to go and visit them in the office, sometimes there were reasons. They got charged for travel time, parking. So it ended up being more expensive, and they had less time with me. So I did offer that if necessary, but I've never been the type of person to push someone to change. I will provide them with the options, provide them with the way I work, and if it suits them, then it works well. And the interesting thing was, I just would get a flow of clients, just this constant flow of clients. And I guess maybe people knew what I was doing and how I was doing it, and they didn't have that long-term commitment with me. They knew I would just come in and fix something up, and so it worked really well.
I love it. I mean, we often talk about finding ideal customers and good customers and bad customers. And I think the way that you have outlined it is a powerful way. It's like, this is the way I want it, and it's either going to be that way or it's not going to be that way at all. And what that does is it's very clear for people. There's no emotion really to it that I could hear in your voice. And so people are free to choose. People are free to choose, right? And then you get what you want, they get what they want, everybody's happy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess also because I was doing it that way, I now was able to work with clients way beyond my local geographical area back then. So I had, I was open up to the whole of Australia I could work with, and now I very much work with. I can work with clients anywhere in the world because I'm not focused on the compliance side. I'm focused on the getting the data cleansed and correct side, and I'm structuring it in a way that surfaces useful information.
So in terms of that component, maybe explain that a little bit more, because that sounds like it's a shift now in your business.
No, I probably always did it that way. But it's probably, it's interesting because I think there's a lot of people talking about the terminology advisory. And to me, I think bookkeepers are really well placed to offer this in terms of what you need clean data, and bookkeepers are all over generating clean data. They're structuring the books correctly, and they're making sure that the data all makes sense so they can do the compliance work. But then from that point, they can do the advisory work. But what is really important to me is that the chart of accounts is producing meaningful information. So I would find that I would go into a business and they were running a generic chart of accounts that had never been customized to their needs and didn't mean anything to them. So I actually spent a lot of time with business owners going, here's a whiteboard. What information from your business would be useful? And then sort of breaking that down and amending the chart of accounts so we could actually pull that information out. So a very simple way to do that, if you look at the income or the revenue lines of the chart of account, you then go and look at their advertising material. So if you look at their business card or you look at their sort of marketing material on their website, what are the services they are offering? Noting what the services they are offering, can you see them replicated in the income or revenue lines? I went into so many businesses that just simply had income as a single line and then had 300 expense lines. And I'm like, well, how do you know which service or which area is doing better than the other? And they didn't know. They had no idea. So I would, the quick and dirty way was I'd say, okay, well, this is what you're marketing. How about we split it out like that? And of course, some things don't seem to necessarily neatly fall into all of those areas. But if we split it out that way, at least we're going to start generating some information so you can make some decisions about where is best to spend your time, where is the most profitable area to spend your time.
It's essential in any business if they're trying to change, improve. I mean, how can you make decisions without knowing what is the case? What's the what so? And, and so something as simple as what you're talking about is, we got all this revenue coming in. We have no idea what those expenses are tied to. Are they, is it one line of of our revenue? Is it multiple? I mean, just that could be massive impact to a business owner to have that information so they can say, you know what, we don't make any money here on this product or service.
Yeah, absolutely. Massive impact. And that's something that I think that many bookkeepers are well equipped to have that conversation with the business owner. And that's something that I would really encourage them to do because they have so much of the whole process there, producing the clean data, but we just need it to flow in the correct directions. And sitting down, if you can sit them, I know business owners sometimes are difficult to actually have those conversations with, but if you can sit them down with a whiteboard, you don't need a calculator, anything around you, just go, what are we trying to achieve here? What information, what data would be useful? And it may be, don't overwhelm them, maybe just find one piece of data that would be useful for them and structure it and split it out so you can see that. and then sort of you work from there, and you just keep coming back to it and massaging it. So some clients, I know that I would spend up to 14 hours on their chart of accounts, constantly massaging it over a period of about 18 months so that everything was flowing in a way that they were able to make good decisions from it.
So valuable.
One of the things I'm going to say, this I think is really important. Everyone talks about having data-driven decisions, but I like to have data-informed decisions. And I think, again, the bookkeeper is really well placed to have that conversation with the business owner, because an informed decision goes, okay, we believe the data is correct, but we are also going to bring along our gut instinct. Does that data, what is that data telling you? What is the information they're telling you? Does that make sense? Is that what you thought it should be telling you? So bring along the sort of the business owner's gut instincts and the employee's gut instincts to that, so you can actually look at it and go, is it making sense? And if it isn't, then you can explore it further. And I had one incident where the gentleman couldn't understand why his electrical bikes weren't making money. But he's like, the numbers say they're not making money, but I don't understand why they're not making money. And we unpacked it all. And at the point that the cost of the bikes was being entered into the business, they were being entered accidentally as the selling price. So the cost of the bike was being entered as the selling price, and then it was being sold as well. So the person entering the data didn't understand the customs information and the multi-currency split that was happening, and so we were able to unpack it. We had to redo lots of BASs and lots of income statements there. But he identified he was actually making a huge amount of money from these bikes.
Wow. And that there is the side of the compliance and making sure that the numbers are accurate. And then I love how you've positioned that with data-driven decisions, because I think it would, when you start to ask a business owner around what's their gut tell them, it opens up where they probably live most of the time. It's about the gut and their intuition, and they're running with an idea. And if you're saying numbers, that's not typically going to be the main decision point. Whereas you bring them together, it's almost like this invitation to sit down together with both the entrepreneur and the manager and have those two work together, which is more inviting, I think, to them, which will create better conversations.
Absolutely.
So very interesting, and then you also were the author of Xero For Dummies. Now, tell us how that came to be.
Excellent. I'd love to tell you about that. So I'm obsessed with writing. My cupboard since I was about 8 years old are filled with journals, and I write about everything. I write about all of my observations, and I'd written at that stage. I'd written 1-2 books, and I was writing blog posts everywhere. Writing is a cathartic way for me to distill what has happened to me and for me to understand it, and I just constantly writing and pushing it out there. It's like my own free counselling service or therapy service. And Rod Drury, who was the CEO of Xero, he actually tweeted to me because he was very active on Twitter in those days, in the early stages of Xero. How about you write a book on Xero? And we get it into the Amazon and the Apple stores. So I took this to my publishers, and they loved the idea. And so we were going to sort of just write it under my own banner. But then they said, oh, how about we take it up to the For Dummies, which For Dummies is a series of books. It's a well-known series of books. I'm not sure if it's well-known in North America,
Definitely
but
is, yeah.
Yeah, okay. It's sort of a gold and black series of books. And my background is I'm an accountant who can kind of write. I'm not a writer who understands accounting. So I went up there, and then they're like, okay, you have to do the For Dummies program. And it was like this intensive 6 or 8 week writing program, which really was incredibly intensive. And I had I would have to write something, and then 30 people would assess it and send it back to me. So meanwhile, I'm running my own business and I'm getting all of this writing, and I learned how to structure the writing in a way, technical writing. I had to write in a modular format, so every paragraph kind of had to be independent of what was happening around it, so it could be cut and put in another place. You have all the stylized way that they like everything written, with icons, with notes. And so it was a very intensive process for me that really drained me. But I got out of it, got to the other end of it, and they then accepted me as a writer for them. And we went ahead and we wrote the book, and it was like, I think just the content pages were like 1,000 words. Like, that was just the content page. So it was a huge book. I was able to write, I think, I write about 20,000 words a month, and so it took me about 4 months, and I was just writing 15 hours a day for 4 months to get that book out. It was very exciting. Xero very kindly technically checked the whole book. So I would write it would go and get technically checked. There's a lovely lady there called Sue Pack who would do oversaw the tech checking of that. And then we had it all produced, and it's been out there. We're now at the 4th edition. We're going to the 5th edition. Typically, all computer books, all for dummies books, so be it by Word or Excel or Xero, they're updated every 2 years. They always have been updated every 2 years. So the update is due at the end of the year for the Xero for Dummies book. And it's kind of like a car. And I explain this to people, that you know how to drive a car, and the book teaches you how to drive a car. It teaches you how to use the Xero accounting solution. Sometimes the cassette player in the car is swapped over for a CD player, and then it's swapped over so it can play your iPhone or your latest streaming device. But that structurally doesn't mean that you don't know how to drive the actual car. So the book fundamentally is 95% there, but yes, because the software is online, it does change constantly. So some of the peripherals around the edge do change, but it's interesting because some chapters are never touched. Then other chapters, just there's lots of imagery, and the structure is changed.
I could only imagine how much that would be all over the place. And I love your analogy of the car. I mean, I mean, when we think about using a Word document, I mean, it really, since I started using Word 20 years ago or 30 years ago, whatever it is now, still doing the same thing, but there's a whole bunch of other stuff around it that doesn't really impact how I initially use it, but there's all sorts of other features and functionalities, which can be overwhelming for people. Well, that must, I mean, an incredible amount of work went into writing that book. And having done that, did that change how you related to the industry, or did that change your trajectory and your career at all?
Yeah, good question. It was an incredible amount of work, but I think it was really because I'm a micro business, so I'm sitting here on my own doing my stuff, and that was probably a big step in my journey, and it pushed me up to that sort of next level. It helped me overall with all of my writing, so I'm a lot more efficient with my writing and get it out a lot quicker. Plus I had very much positioned me as the authority and a reliable person in the industry. So it very much helped me and it very much helped position me as an authority around those solutions. And it's not necessarily around Xero, but around, I can talk about accounting technology on quite a reliable basis. Yeah, so very, very exciting, because I think the thing is there's a lot of books out there, and there's a lot of people who can just publish something via Amazon. And this book has actually sat in the top 100 list for 5 years, which is amazing. Wow. And it actually, I can go into a bookstore and always find, which is lovely.
That's cool.
Yeah, it is very cool. It is very cool. Very, very, very happy that I was able to do that, and very grateful that Rod Drury find people who have faith in you and have belief in you, and can let you have a vision and actually work at that vision. I think that's really, really important, to find those people who will do that with you.
So true. Now, you also host a podcast called the Accounting Technology Podcast, Cloud Stories, and along with that, an accounting apps newsletter. Tell us a little bit about those and how those came to be.
Yes, I'd love to tell you about that. So the Accounting Apps newsletter is really cool in that I use robots to pull in all of the blog feeds of the accounting app community. So there's about 600 to 700 blog feeds from the accounting apps community, and it pulls them all in on a daily basis. And I go through with the robots and curate them and choose the ones. So there's probably 200 that come in on every 3 days. I'll choose about 60 of them that I feel will provide education, will provide learning back into the community. And from there, the robot uses artificial intelligence and machine learning to look at what you as the reader, have clicked on in the past, and it creates a bespoke newsletter for every individual reader based on what they've liked in the past, because they know that, say, if they click on payroll solutions, they're going to provide them with information about payroll solutions, so they can deep dive into their own particular area. Because of that, people come back and tell me, wow, this is really interesting. It's like, it's the perfect newsletter for me. I have this belief that when it comes to accounting apps, we're kind of being overwhelmed. There's maybe 800, there's maybe 1,000 of them out there, and we're overwhelmed with that information. And I have this belief that we need to, even if we're at full capacity, we can fit in 15 minutes a day of learning. And I think that it's really important for that to be technical learning. And I hope that the newsletter provides that and pushes out some of that technical learning and gives people the opportunity, okay, I've not learned about this solution before, but let me just read this, and maybe it's something that's going to directly help a client tomorrow, or maybe it's just going to sit in the back of my mind and help a client maybe in the next 2 months when I work with them. So that's the Accounting Apps newsletter. And the Cloud Stories podcast is long-form interviews with people working in the accounting technology industry. So it may be someone who has developed an accounting app solution, someone who's using an accounting app solution, software developers, venture capitalists, bookkeepers, and accountants. And what I want to do is pull out the human stories, because as much as I love robots, sometimes I find in the community people will attack a particular solution because it doesn't do this or it doesn't do that. And I want to remind people that accountants and bookkeepers generally love small businesses. They love small businesses. Accounting apps, many cases, are small businesses. And I just want to bring out that human side. So when there is a problem, how about we don't go and yell about it and vent about it in a group? How about we recognize there's a person behind that who's who's taking his daughter to ballet, who's taking his son to soccer, who's doing his best to his or her best to try and develop this solution. And if it's not doing something that you need, go back and talk to them. And you've now, through the opportunity of the Cloud Stories podcast, you've had an opportunity to have that warmer relationship with them. You know them you've spent an hour with them, and go back and talk to them. And many of the solutions are like, if you tell us what you need, we'll build it in. But we need to know. You need to provide us with the case study. Don't just tell us you need something, because what you say may not actually be what you actually want, even though you think it is. Provide us with the case study and the reasonings and what it means and how it will impact both you and your clients, and then we can look at our what we're doing and see where we can build it in.
So true. Fantastic resources, really, for the community. I mean, the Accounting Apps newsletter sounds, so intuitive. I mean, I think of often I'll sign up for, Spotify. You sign up for Spotify and it says, well, what do you like? And I don't know what I like. I like music. Whereas I never liked those
The
things.
answer should always be ABBA.
Yeah.
Michael, the answer should always be ABBA.
ABBA. Well, yes, of course. It's always, it should be self-selected, always by default selected. ABBA's the top right there. Who wouldn't love ABBA, right?
Exactly.
They're crazy people that don't love ABBA. But the fact that you're getting in there, you want to go in and it says, well, tell me everything that you like. Often I don't even know what I like or what I want. And yours sounds very interesting in that it's going to learn what I like on its own from my own just going and poking around, and then it just gets smarter and smarter. So, wow, what a valuable resource for the community.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I'm very excited about it. And I'm very excited that I just feel it's just helping everyone just move a step forward in their journey and just helping that.
Wow. Now, I have a feeling we could probably do several episodes talking about all sorts of different things. You have so much knowledge of all the apps, and you're following all this news, and I mean, it's incredible. But I would really like to just hear what, in your career around technology, what have been some of the high points of where it's like, wow, this really solved this problem well? What's your kind of like your big list? I don't want to say like your top 5 or your top 3. I don't know. It could be top 100. But what are some of those wins for you that you just said, wow, this really helped me in my business? Well, how did I live without this?
Well, I could talk about technology that sort of helps people with advisory. Would you like me to do that?
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay, so if I pull back to what I was talking about before in terms of I want the clean data and I want the software to be structured in a way that is surfacing clean data. So I think when we start with whatever we're using, be it Wave or FreshBooks or Xero or QuickBooks Online, I'm very keen for you to structure your chart of accounts and to explore how jobs or projects or categories or options or anything in there that can additionally be overlaid so that the data can be structured in a way that it's coming out and it's surfaced and it's useful. So then one of the solutions that I really like to plug in, and it's not a solution, it's actually called a tool, is called Data Deer, and it's out of a small business in Malta, which is, I think, kind of exciting. And it plugs into either your QuickBooks Online or your Xero, and it allows you to extract a lot of that data and push it down into Excel. But there's a two-way connection. So you can now in Excel, which bookkeepers love Excel, you're able to manipulate it in various ways, but then you're able to push a button and push it back up into the software solution that you're using. So it can be a really easy way, for example, if you have a point of sale solution that doesn't integrate with your software, you can set up the templates so you can take the data from the till reel, just punch it into Excel in a very easy format, which the business owner can understand, and then they push a button and the information uploads into your software. And by doing that, you also have the ability to easily create graphs, pivot tables, etc., if you're a sort of a bit of an Excel nerd.
Wow. So
I really like that one. The next one I would talk about is looking at a cash flow forecasting solution such as Float. So Float is based out of Edinburgh. And what that will do is it will plug into your various accounting solutions, and it enables you to focus on cash flow. Just focus on forecasting on cash flow, focus on a 2-year cash flow forecast, and you can sort of build in different forecasts into that and build in different scenarios into that. And it's quite of a sort of a one step up from what you're getting in the software solution. It's not too complicated. It's easy to use. And we find that I find that business owners really like using that and can understand it. And if you understand your cash flow, you can look at it and go, do I have enough money to employ another person? Do I have enough money to buy another truck? Do I need to get a loan? Do I have excess cash? What should I do with that? What is the best place? And it gives you the opportunity to actually manage that cash flow and actually have those discussions with the business owner about that. Moving up from that, I would look at what I call plug and play solutions. So they're very much already got a lot of the structure in them, and you plug them into your accounting solutions such as your Xeros or your QuickBooks, such as Fathom. So Fathom is actually based out of Brisbane, where I am actually based. And it has all of your graphs in there. It has all of your analytics in there. It has three-way forecasting, so you can go sort of good, bad, ugly scenarios. And it has sort of these business intelligence tools that will work really well for you. One of the things that I really like is that it has a cash flow water flow chart in it. So it will tell you where the difference between your profit and your bank balance, which is something that clients always ask, is they go, why is my bank balance not equal my profit? And it's actually a beautiful report that actually shows you exactly where all the money has gone and sort of the difference between those two figures. And when it comes to data, we can put a lot of numbers in front of people, but visualization, a lot of our business owners, they need those visuals to understand what's happening. And again, don't overwhelm them. Maybe structure it and pull out one chart that you're going to show them. And sometimes people have said to me, they pick on one chart and they send all clients the same chart. And they said, you can have this chart for free, but if you want to talk about it with me, let's book a time and it will cost X amount of money. And so that's a kind of a good way to move into that sort of that consultative advisory area and discuss what's happening in that chart and how you can improve it. Going
Amazing.
up from there, one further level is you have your Microsoft Power BI tools that will allow you to pull data out of your software, but also out of different areas such as Google Analytics, such as your inventory solution, such as your CRM solution, and you're able to bring it into sort of one area and do a lot of comparative information. You're able to create different dashboards, and say if the business has different people at different levels, say they've got someone in purchasing and someone in sales and then the CEO, using Power BI, you can create a different dashboard for each of them. So as the bookkeeper, you may feel comfortable doing that, or you may not feel comfortable doing that, and you may want to connect with someone who can do that for you. I think it's really interesting how people start off doing bookkeeping, but then some of them may evolve and go, okay, well, I really like that. I'm going to evolve into doing that, and I can then help the other bookkeepers in the community, because I think one of the work trends is connectivity. And it's not just connectivity between the solutions, but it's connectivity between your networks. And it's going, I'm sitting here as a micro business, but I can connect into that expert who can do that for me and who I know and trust implicitly will support my client in doing that. So I think that is a really exciting opportunity. So I've kind of talked about various advisory apps there. And one of the other cool tools, if we pull back and go clean data, one of the tools that here in Australia has really taken off is one called Xbert, Xbert. And what that does is it reviews your data and it uses artificial intelligence and triggers and parameters to identify where there are issues and alert you to them. It's constantly alerting you to them so that you can then drop in, drill down and look at your individual clients and see if there's a problem and fix it up or explain it away. And it just gives you a lot of confidence that the data and everything's happening is correct. So, for example, 2 supplier invoices accidentally get pushed into the system. Okay, bang, you've got an alert, you go in and you check it and you can deal with it.
Wow.
So that's a number of different solutions. Should I give you so I do a lot of writing as well, and I have talked to you about the newsletter that I use. One of the cool writing solutions I'm using at the moment is a plugin on your Google Chrome, and it's called WordTune. And you can download that and run it for free for a week, and then after that you can pay, or you can just use the light version. And what that does is if you write a sentence, it will go over it and it will suggest other ways of phrasing that sentence, and it will suggest ways to make the sentence longer or to make it shorter. So I had to do bullet points on a PowerPoint slide the other day, and I went through and wrote everything I needed to, but then I took it across. I used the WordTune to shorten all of my sentences, and it's just another way. It's like having a copywriter working with you and streamlining your writing.
Wow. Amazing,
Yeah,
amazing. You know, it's been absolutely fantastic hearing your story, and what I've learned through this very short period of time is just the absolute wealth of information and knowledge that you have, particularly around technology, but overall industry, and such an inspiration for, I think, our listener to embrace technology, and what a great place to really help embrace it, and through knowledge and education, is through both your podcast, your newsletter, and as well some of the writings, your own individual writings that you've done. Heather, this has been absolutely fantastic. We'll have links to all of your newsletter, your podcast, your book. But is there any other way that you'd like to recommend people get to learn more about you?
I suggest if people can connect with me on all of the social media channels. It's Heather Smith with an AU at the end. They can find me and say hello to me. And I do encourage the newsletter. Hopefully it should provide you with useful information. And if you are reading it and you know an app that I've not included, just simply let me know and I'll make sure that the feed is included. So I just want to try and put as much information out into the community in a way that is digestible and easily to absorb.
Fantastic. Well, Heather, on behalf of our listener, thank you for your generosity in being on the show and sharing your wisdom and knowledge. It's been fantastic.
Thank you so much, Michael, for having me on the show. And thank you so much to all the listeners out there for listening in. Really appreciate it. We didn't get to talk about niching. That was what we missed out on.
Yes, we did. And well, you know what? We're going to have you back if that's okay with you. I'd love to have you back. And we try to keep the episodes down around
45 minutes. Yeah.
Well, usually 30 minutes, actually. We went a ways over, but it was great. So I always, if we go over, we go over. But we do keep it around there. But I'd love to have you back, and we'll talk about some other things. And the invitation there is, if you have some things going on or some cool things that you want to get out there, we'd love to have you back anytime.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it would be useful to talk about niching and how to actually choose an app. And I also, and this may not be
so
me.
This is like niching into apps.
Niching into focusing on a particular industry, a vertical, a horizontal, a geography, a personality, sort of talking about that. You may have other people who do that.
Nice.
It can be niching into app advisory. I just sometimes people just start a business, they just take on any client, and then they just like spread really thinly. And I'm just like, knuckle down and focus, learn the terminology, focus in one area, and a lot of things will snowball and work in your direction if you do that.
I love it.
And one of the other things I think is really important for the bookkeeping community, and it may not be me that you get on for this, but I think there's a massive opportunity to niche or focus on inventory. And I think that they can charge a lot more if they focus on inventory. And I just don't see enough bookkeepers in the industry focusing on that area, because I think their precision, fine detail mindset is really akin to inventory. And they can, I know bookkeepers who've increased their hourly rate by 10 times by focusing on inventory. And it's it starts by just sort of jumping in and finding out about it. And there's just not enough people out there who know it.
Well, we're going to put this into the episode, and this is a little after the show conversation, and as well, a little cliffhanger teaser. Will we be able to get Heather Smith to come back and tell us how we can grow our business through niching and inventory? Fantastic, Heather. We will schedule that, and we will have that as an episode. And I can't wait to just focus right in on, we're going to have a niche conversation about a niching.
Excellent.
Perfect.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And with that, we wrap another episode of the Successful Bookkeeper Podcast. To learn more about today's wonderful guest and to get access to all sorts of valuable free business building resources, you can go to thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Until next time, goodbye.
You've been listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with Michael Palmer. For more information and to download the resources mentioned in this episode, please visit us at thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Thank you for listening.